This is a production of Cornell University.
This is Anu Rangarajan. I am the director of the Small Farm Program, and I'm really excited to share with you more about the program, the kinds of things that we do, and help you understand a little bit more about the way we sort of present ourselves in the world, but it's led to a little bit of confusion, so I'm hoping I can clarify it. So I just wanted to give you first, I'm just trying to advance my slides. There we are. Tell you about the program itself and where we sit. We are in the College of Ag and Life Sciences. Our funding comes primarily through small grants and large grants from the USDA, and we are supported in part with some funds from the college and through Smith-Lieber. What our goal is, and we were started in 2001, because at that time around the country there was a tremendous cry out for greater attention to the needs of small farmers. This emerged from the famous Pickford case in which USDA was sued for not addressing the needs of black farmers in the South. So they committed funding to develop small farm programs across the country, and it's from there that the Small Farm Program was started. I joined the program as the director in 2004 and have totally enjoyed myself. We have a really great staff that I'll introduce you to over the process of our webinar today, but share with you really the kinds of work that we're trying to do to enhance the viability of small farms in New York, the Northeast, and in fact now we're working nationally. So I think our strengths are really best defined through the way in which we try to identify critical issues that are affecting small farms and their viability, and then how we develop collaborations to address those issues. We are always thinking about the types of publications or information resources that will support small farm development, whether you are just thinking about farming all the way to where you've been farming for 20 years and you're thinking you may want to re-strategize your business or add new commodities. We try to serve all those farms either from initial startup all the way to when they're optimizing their performance to developing a mature farm business. So we are doing a lot of things at all of those points, but I think we're probably most known for our beginning farmer support, and so I'll be sharing with you stuff about that. But we do have a network of educators across the state that have committed to supporting small farm and new farm development. And in every county of the state, we have one individual who's identified. And I'm not sure if any of you are those folks, but I would encourage you to find out who, because we do send resources out to them. And those educators may, in your county or surrounding counties, have other resources locally to share around small farm development. So I just thought I would back up and tell you what is a small farm. And the USDA defines that as a farm that has a gross annual revenue of less than $250,000 a year. This number, some people are pushing on it, thinking it should be closer to $350,000, but this is where we're at right now. And you should know that 90% of the farms in the country, and in fact in New York, fit this definition. The most rapid growth in farms at this point are those farms that are very small, that may be grossing less than $25,000 a year. And this is from the sort of energy that's been focused on developing new farms. But there's a lot of people, and probably many of the people that you work with, who are really just growing something in a fairly small area and selling it very locally and supplementing their family income and their own family food security. So we are thrilled and excited to help anyone who wants to identify themselves as a farmer. And frankly, the more people who call themselves a farmer, the better in my book. So what we have observed that most our farmers are really diverse. They are often diversified. Vegetable farms are diversified across enterprises. So they may have mixes of vegetables and poultry or beef and fruit, any combination, honey, maple syrup. We have folks doing small-scale value added. There's a huge diversity and I think a really optimistic and positive sense of possibilities in our small farm sector. So a little bit more from the people that we actually are able to reach. We have a listserv, and I'll show you how to join that, where we share updates every 2 weeks on important resources or information that are of interest to small producers. But when we recently, we did a survey because we were trying to understand more, for example, about where do small farmers actually sell their products. And I'm really sharing this just again to drive home the point that when you look at the farm size, a majority of them are below 50 acres. And then even the highest percent of the people that answered our call for information were farming less than 5 acres. And this, again, may be many people you know and you work with. And again, that gross revenue quite low. The majority of the people that are accessing and sort of communicating with us are making less than $25,000 a year. We do have farms that are making more than $250,000 a year. And so while USDA may not call them small, I think that we create a home for them. And I tend to use a much more flexible definition of what's a small farm. And I tell people that if you think you're a small farm, you are. And the reason I say that is it's really contextual, and it's a lot based on your community, the people you interact with, and where you go to sort of find your colleagues. And so we have some farms, for example, that may participate in a lot of our programming that make well over $250,000, but they align with the values and the sort of energy of the small farm movement. Enterprises, based on some surveys that we've done recently, really focus heavily on poultry and vegetables. Again, if you are even thinking about starting a small farm, these are the easiest entry points as well. The least amount of capital required for getting into production at a more commercial level. We tell people at least $10,000 and some leased land, and you can, and well-drained soil, ideally, you can start a vegetable operation. This is just, again, to give you a sense of where we're seeing the energy and the sort of growth across the state. The majority of our farms have not been in business for that long, and this is part of a result of our new farm project, which has been really out there and recruiting people into the program. But over 60% of the people that we are reaching have been farming for less than 10 years. But we do have quite a few that are what we call the sort of mature farms, over 15 years in production. That's just really, I want to just give you a little bit of background on who we've been serving traditionally, and we know that that's changing. And so we're developing resources to address some of the changes in that audience. So and the way that Lori and Jen had shared with me some of your interests is that there may be individuals you work with that really would love to scale up a little bit and maybe add some income to their home or their youth and want to start some kind of a business and experience what that is to be an entrepreneur. And I think there's a tremendous amount of energy and excitement in the small farm sector for entrepreneurs. We know, for example, that the interest in local foods is growing, and that there's a demand for farm products and direct sales. Every year it grows. Ideally, we could dream of 25% of all of our food being sourced locally in time. In Tompkins County, we've achieved that actually. But when we think about the rest of the country, there's a lot of challenges with that, but we still keep working towards it. In New York State, there's a growing number of CSAs in farmers markets. I'm sure you're all familiar with these. But one thing that we've faced with these is that, just a second, that there's some saturation happening in these markets. And so we have found that some of our producers are really interested in new wholesale markets that are sort of like direct marketing, but you're going direct to a wholesale institution. So food hubs are an example of that. Some institutions are really interested in buying direct groceries like Wegmans and others, and the independent grocers are starting to enter this scene of wanting to provide easy-to-access wholesale markets. And then restaurants, which have been a stronghold for many of our small producers. And so we see that for entrepreneurs, not only developing and creating products for direct markets, but also thinking about diversifying their markets to include wholesale and different sorts of strategies, primarily to manage risk and to ensure some more farm security. So a lot of our work, and I'll share with you some resources that are emerging to support both the direct markets, but really the wholesale market readiness. So here is a list of different things I want to share with you. And I'm going to do this primarily by doing a tour of the website, because if you haven't been to our website, it can be a little bit daunting because there's a lot of information there, but I wanted to share with you what I felt are really important resources that you may need to know about that can support your work. And I'm hoping that we've designed these really to help educators across the state get farms to do some of the work on their own before they start taking up a lot of your time. So keep that in mind. We're trying to help with designing materials that help you be more efficient, to give you easy to access resources that you can share with these new farmers or small farms that might come to you. But then also we want to hear from you what you feel are resources that you need going forward, because that's where I think we can do a lot to support your work. So I'm going to shift now to the website, and I hope you can see this. Can everyone see this website? If you can. Yep. All right, great. Yep. Thank you. So the first thing to note at our homepage, and you can see it's smallfarms.cornell.edu, is we feature events that are coming up across the state. And so these events, for example, co-managing farm stewardship with food safety gaps in conservation. This is a resource, for example, that's been released, microloans, grazing methods, and opportunity for learning. These are some events or activities that we want people to know about. On this page, I wanted to point out to you the strategy to join our list. And so down here in the corner, it says sign up for the e-news. And we really encourage folks to sign into this e-news using this template. We have a few questions we like to know, and I can even try to extract from you the number of people who are gardeners or homesteaders or aspiring farmers that have been subscribing to us, if there was any interest from you to know who in your own county is already interfacing with us. We also are always really deeply interested and committed to enhancing the diversity of our audience, and so we really ask and hope that people can share with us more about their own backgrounds. And we are recently working really hard to create supportive strategies for military veterans to come into agriculture. So we ask about if they can self-identify as a veteran. And I'll share more about that. So again, from the home page across the top, there's a whole bunch of buttons here, and I'm going to probe a few of those. I'm going to probe the quarterly a little bit, share with you some more about projects and resources. So if you go into the resource tab, you will find some of our most popular guides. And the first one I want to show you is this Guide to Farming in New York. And we developed this years ago, and this has been one of our flagship publications. From the Guide to Farming in New York, if you get calls from individuals who are either interested in farming or have more questions about business structure, strategy, marketing considerations, I would encourage you to sort of spend some time at this website and see what you can find here. We have resources on developing a farm, for example, different structures and the issues that they are important. And these are all designed, all of these fact sheets are designed to be either downloaded as a full guide, or you can use them independently. And so it tells you when we've revised it, and we actually, when there's new information, we revise every summer. And so we have a whole group of authors that have helped us with this to revise it. So here's an example of the fact sheet, for example, on farm insurance, which will tell you the issues around having supplemental or product liability insurance, and basically information to really make sure that small farmers are considering risk management and how they're going to protect themselves and their family. So again, this is just the Guide to Farming in New York. We did print it at one time. And when we printed, I think we handed out over 10,000 copies. And really, the excitement for this came from established farms, not just new farms. There is information in here that any farmer really needs to know about. And so definitely explore this guide, and hopefully you will find it interesting and helpful in the work that you're doing with gardeners who may be wanting to scale up. And so this particular resource is just one of several that I think are important for you to know about. I'm going to dig in a little bit to the Urban Guide in a minute. Well, actually, I'll just do that right now. So the Urban Guide to Farming, we use the same model of the Guide to Farming in New York, but here we're focused strictly on an urban environment. And in this case, the topics are different. Some are similar, but and we encourage people to use the general guide as well. But here you may have some specialized issues, for example, dealing with soil contamination. So this, again, is printable as a fact sheet, and you can use this to share with somebody who's really interested in doing urban farming or has a concern about soil contamination. There's a tremendous number of resources that are linked. And we're currently in the middle of doing a complete update of the guide and adding a few more sections. The sections that we want to add are focused in on mushrooms and agroforestry, as well as some more dive down into hydroponics and these new sort of vertical farming strategies that everybody seems to be excited about. So that's a bit more about the two guides to farming. These other resources are the on-farm. If you have people doing poultry, this on-farm poultry slaughter, this was driven by a liability insurance issue where a bunch of farmers were calling us and saying they're getting canceled from insurance policies. And that was a big concern to us. So we acted very quickly to respond to that, working with insurance companies to create what we felt were guidelines to support safe handling on farms for poultry slaughter. And because there's an exemption under 1,000 birds, we want to make sure that people are really, if they're doing it on farm, that they're considering all of the components of setting up a good system that's both efficient for them for labor and safe for the quality of the birds they're producing. There's an online course that complements this, and Lynn Bliven has been a real leader for us, and she's out in Western New York and an extension educator. Another important guide is the Guide to Direct Farming of Livestock and Poultry. Now, this is a guide that's a little bit outdated, but Martha and Tatiana have agreed to help us with updating this, and so we're hoping that this coming summer we can actually update the guide. But this has probably been one of our most popular resources that we produced, because there's so many questions around both slaughterhouses and processing, regulations, and then how to handle and direct market poultry and livestock. So I wanted to make sure you knew about that. And so that really gives you a few of the overviews. As far as timely information, it really is through, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the page here. It's through our our update. And so please do sign up for the update. These are every 2 weeks. And if you haven't been receiving them, but there's a ton of resources that we both share on our website homepage, but we also have these inside in the updates that are come as an email. I'm trying to remember, I think here is the list of the archives under our news button. And so you can see, for example, if you open up one, the one that happened last, the most recent one of our recent ones, it tells you both different things to be happening at Cornell, different announcements, and then events that people should know about, and then some job opportunities. We get a lot of people sharing job opportunities with us, and then grants. And so this is our way of trying to provide timely information to individuals who, people that are developing their farms looking for support. So again, I really do encourage you to join and get the update. The other flagship publication for us is our Small Farm Quarterly. And so this is a quarterly magazine, and I'm not sure if any of you have ever written for it, but we would welcome submissions because our editorial team is made up of mostly you, educators from around the state who help us. And they provide articles or they recruit writers for the articles. This is an entirely volunteer publication. We're lucky to have a nice partnership with Lee Publications, who put out Country Folks. And so we generate all of the content and they do the printing and put it in to the Country Folks as an insert. So it goes to over 30,000 families across the Northeast. But what's exciting here is that, anywhere on our website, you can search a topic. So, for example, if you were interested in grazing, you could hit that, and what it would do is basically give you a list of a bunch of the different articles that we have, both in the quarterly, historically. This top one is about a grazing online course, which I'll tell you about a little bit more. You can just click on it. It will pop you to the article that was written by Nancy Glazer, educator in Western New York, talking about renting grazing land. And so this was originally published in the quarterly, but we want to make sure that all of these are available for folks going forward. And then you can see here in that same issue, there was a whole bunch of other articles that may be of interest to you. I think, let me just double check here. So over time, we have always struggled because, as I've described, small farms are really diverse. And how do you pick where to sort of focus your efforts in trying to support the development of such a diverse sector of our farming culture? So because of that, what we have done every other year is we host what we call a Small Farm Summit. And that summit, we recruit broadly across the state using a webinar type format. And so we'll have up to 7 or 8 sites around the state where we ask producers to gather along with those interested in their success. So educators, we get members of different nonprofits, Soil and Water, NRCS, all sorts of folks would gather in these different locations. And then what we try to do is really focus on asking them to help us prioritize the directions that a program like this should take. And we ask them to gather in regions because it's really important to us that we're always cultivating regionally strong collaboration. And so getting people into the room is so much more important, I think, than anything that we do. And that's the hardest thing in our culture now, is to actually have people feel like they develop meaningful relationships. So we have intentionally designed the summit, even though it's only every 2 years. We're hoping that we can really help people connect with those around them that can help. in 2012, we actually had a survey, and we had over 700 small farmers respond to help us prioritize where they thought are the real opportunities to enhance the viability of small farms. And the top 5 that came out of that was distribution to reach local markets, figuring out how to do this, how to help small producers, no matter the scale, actually get themselves into local and regional markets more effectively and more efficiently. Economic impact of small farms on communities. This is like a huge question. We have all these small farms that are supporting local food and hiring local kids, and what is the impact of them on their farms? And interesting, I found it really interesting that this was the second priority from a farm community. Helping deal with livestock processing issues. How do we identify where they should be, and how do we expand or improve our access to those processing facilities? Financing, and then greater investment in research and extension and other services. So this is just giving you a flavor of the kinds of information we get when we ask farmers, where should we focus? But one of the things that I found really interesting is we asked small farmers, where do they see themselves going in 2 years as far as the new ways they want to market? And what I want to highlight is this growth and interest in wholesale. And in 2 years, currently the majority of our farmers are using farm stands or farm markets and CSAs and all of these UPICs as their primary direct channels in the way that they share their products. But this idea of selling to restaurants and food hubs and groceries has really been interesting and exciting. And we have some very small producers in the state who are doing this and finding that they're being really successful. So one of the things that we've done as a program is invest in developing a curriculum to help new producers or existing farmers become more wholesale market ready. And we're rolling this out on April 18th and 19th. It's a 2-day in-service. Your colleagues are the instructors. We have folks from across the state that have worked with us to develop this, and Violet Stone in our program has been leading this effort. And the materials will help producers make decisions on how to shift to a wholesale market, how do they match their production to the demands of these markets, what's the culture among these different types of markets, and then how do we figure out how to work together and foster these opportunities within regions. So that's just really more of a teaser and something I want you to be aware of. This is a professional development opportunity. The people that we want to have attend are people like you, educators around the state who may be getting these kinds of questions or anticipate that it may become a bigger part of their work. So just to put that in mind as you in your planning, and if it's something that's of interest to you. So what I'd like to do now is go back again to our website and share a couple of more resources. So this is that wholesale marketing piece. Baskets to Pallets, Preparing Small and Mid-Sized Farms to Enter Food Hubs, Cooperatives, Restaurants, and Groceries. And so this is the basis of it. We do have a wholesale market watch and a listserv that you can sign up, and we share information about that. We've also had a series of webinars that if you're really curious about understanding what small farms are interested in this, I would encourage you to go and take a look at some of these webinars where different farmers have shared with us their transition from direct to wholesale. And you would be surprised how small some of these farms are. And so we have a big group of folks, and this is the group of your colleagues that have been helping to write this curriculum. So stay tuned. I hope it's something that you might be interested in going forward. So there's a few other things that are happening at the program, and what are other areas that I can't really dig into with you right now, but I just wanted you to know about. We have a whole new effort focused on helping farmers who are interested in grazing And so we have a grazing initiative, and we also have a program that's focused quite heavily on tillage and soil health management for small producers. So those are two projects that are really specific and really focus on a particular sector, and we do take these things on periodically. I want to focus in on the our Beginning Farmer project, the Northeast Beginning Farmer project. So this actually emerged from all of you. In 2006, we kept getting, we started having conversations with educators that we were connected with, and they kept saying, you know, I cannot believe the number of people coming to me with interest in starting a farm, and I don't know how to respond. And then what we observed is that everybody around the state was so busy creating their own curricula and trying to put together their own materials, and it seemed like kind of a crazy waste of a lot of people's time to not have a centralized resource. And so that's when we really brought together a team of educators and created the Beginning Farmer Project. Our vision is that every new farmer in New York has access to the support, information, and training they need to be successful. Like, that's our mission. And we want it to be that anyone who wants to farm, regardless of where they're at, can do this and have people that can help them with it. So in order to do that, what we have really done and worked really hard, as I mentioned, is create small farm and beginning farmer contacts within every CCE office around the state. And we are welcome to add you to our list online of references at our homepage. There's a Who Can Help tab, and we are happy to make sure that you're listed there. We've also, in our work, cultivated a network of organizations in New York and the Northeast that specifically support new farmers. So it's not just extension educators that are out there doing this work. We have a bunch of nonprofits. We have incubator farms. We have all sorts of people that are really passionate about helping people start farming. And so what we try to do through the Small Farm Program is professional development for those individuals, to try to make sure that the educators and those that are supporting new farm development really have connection to the best resources, information, materials to make their jobs easier. So we really do see ourselves both as we provide information and resources directly to new producers, but then we want to cultivate a learning community among the educators that are working in this area. And so we have met annually. We call it the Beginning Farming Learning Network, and we usually meet at the Century House around end of October up in Albany, because that's actually 6 hours from everywhere in the Northeast, believe it or not. And so we do an in-service training, and I don't know if any of you have been there, but it's actually usually a really dynamic and fun gathering where we're learning from each other how to do this work. So I'm just going to review with you just quickly some of the offerings. We have online courses. These are 6-week non-credit classes, and we have currently, I think we're up to 17 classes. We've had over 1,300 people go into these classes, and a 42% report increasing their own revenue in their farm after taking these classes. And so these are, again, facilitated primarily by extension educators who have developed a passion for working with new farms. The model that we're using is that people are paying for these, and we're paying educators to help teach them. And then it also covers them the administrative management, which is a ton of administrative stuff that has to happen behind the scenes with this for Erica Frenet. And so she's been our real shepherd for the online courses, one of our staff members. But we are always looking for new instructors, so just so you know that. And then I'm going to take you on a tour of some of our resources on the website. And so let me do that right now. There we are. So the this website currently is separate from the Small Farm Program website, and that's caused some confusion. The reason we created a separate website was partly because some of our funding, we needed to have a place to keep a lot of materials. But it also it has had such an energy and drive, the development of the Beginning Farmer project and the tools and the resources, that it was a lot to manage. But I do want to give you the heads up that we are imagining bringing the two sites back together going forward, because a lot of the new farms that we've been cultivating are actually hitting the point where they really are more established and are going to need a different kind of support. So we are tooling up for that. So one of the things that I just realized that I cannot get past this little sharing my monitor screen. Okay, so I think that this question about where do you start? Well, I guess there's getting started. So what we have created is this section called Plan Your Farm. And so this portal and basically collection of resources is really there to help someone who wants to work on their own start to get into thinking about, is farming for me? What commodities do I want to do? How am I going to do the planning for this farm? So it's a whole series of worksheets that you can do with somebody, or you can send them there and say, just start to do your own thinking and planning. And it's done using a sort of question narrative where people can actually go through and get some guidance as to how to narrow down, what do I need to know, how do I finance it, or can I get a grant? And so these are structured as tutorials. So, for example, in this tutorial on goals and skills, what's really interesting is we complement both the written material with videos of farmers and new farmers around the country, around the state, who really have been able to clearly articulate some of the issues and the strategies that have helped them be successful. And so I would definitely send somebody to this Planning Your Farm Hub as a place to get started. And one of the challenges I think that all of you may face is people, they want someone to sometimes hold their hand. And I would encourage you to push back and say, show me what you can do. And they totally. I just see a comment from Jen that they want us to do it, and it's and I think that farming as an entrepreneur is an individualized action, and starting with information and giving them. We're hoping this portal helps you say, look, dig. This is your project. Here's where you get started. And hopefully you can use some of these. You can point people to some of these resources that I've shared with you to help them start thinking about farming. But what we know is, doing this kind of stuff online is really, in some ways, for a certain kind of learner. And we know we have lots of different learners. And we have some people that just don't even want to do online teaching. And so we have encouraged and support and worked with a network of educators around the state who do these So You Want to Farm type workshops. And if you haven't done one of those or you're interested, I would encourage you to go to the Who Can Help tab here. And if you don't know who else is doing it in your area, but I bet you could find somebody locally, if you're not aware of them, who is doing these types of trainings within a several county area. So don't start from scratch. Don't feel like you have to do this yourself. And if you aren't able to find someone, just send us a note. Send me or Erica an email, and we will try to connect you with people who can help you figure out how to address this need. So these worksheets are really meant to be a self-guided process for planning a farm startup. But what's become our real flagship is our online courses. And so we have a bunch of online courses, and we're actually going to be restructuring the way we present them, because it's a bit overwhelming. And people are telling us, like, I don't know which to take first, and I don't know how to approach it. But none of these have prerequisites. They're 6-week facilitated courses that help you understand all the aspects of getting into farming. Square One, one of our most popular classes, is the very first class. like, is farming for me? You know, what are your own motivations? What resources do you have? What might fit you as far as an enterprise? These are the kinds of questions that are addressed in Square One. And it could be a place where you direct people who come to you, like, I'm thinking I'd like to start a farm. It's like, go do this, think, go through the process, take this course, and then let's talk after that. And so again, it's not about dismissing them, but trying to help them help themselves. And so we've structured these classes to be interactive. There's a tremendous number of resources that people have access to. There's often two people that are teaching together. There's some basics about how this class is structured. One of our new classes that keeps filling up, and it's really interesting, is farm-scale mushroom cultivation. And Steve Gabriel, who's on our staff now, has been teaching this, and every time he's offered it twice, and it fills up each time, 50 people, and there's a waiting list. So there's a lot of excitement and interest in something like mushrooms, and whether they're growing it on logs or they're using other strategies with bags. This is a class that it's an unusual class and it's an unusual crop, but we do find a lot of interest. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. So another part of the online courses, and something that's been really helpful, I'm just trying to find, is our Voices of Experience videos. And so, again, another way of helping people learn is by learning stories, is by seeing stories and learning from other farmers. And so we started building this video collection in 2008, I believe, and we had some funding from USDA as well as from Farm Viability to do this. And we have a whole collection of videos on our YouTube channel. So it's YouTube Cornell Small Farms. And for example, I'm not sure if you can hear this or not, but here's one from Black Diamond. These videos are, some of them have been, like this one on castrating pigs. I can't believe how many people have watched this. So, but these are some farms that are in and around Ithaca, but they represent really diversified farms, and they represent different perspectives on how to do the work. And so they include videos about the farmer themselves, sort of how they approach different activities, how they may market. And then we have a couple of new ones at the bottom on draft horses. Don Hughes, who's here locally, has started the Draft Animal Power DAP network and has been committed to draft animal work. And we are seeing more and more people expressing interest in draft animals. So we wanted to connect them to that. So there are so many videos that are organized different ways. Here's just I can't even remember how many videos we have on here now. But there's different projects as well, and different videos that we brought in. For example, we have a video here on Farm Service Agency microloans, because there's a lot of people that are interested in that program to start a small operation, so understanding what the issues are. We've also had a program for educators that was focused on cultural competency for new farm development. And we heard from two leaders, two individuals who are leading local nonprofits, small nonprofits, and how they're addressing issues of diversity in their programming, and what were some of the challenges that they faced in working across difference. So there's all sorts of different materials here on the program, but on small farm startup, as well as how to build hoop houses, and just lots of different things. So I would encourage you to explore the video collection, Farming in Action. So I think then the other resources that I wanted to point you to are, again, on that homepage. If you look across the top of this Beginning Farmer project, we've gone through the tutorials, the online courses, There's also then these resources, the videos, the guides, and then we have these articles that come from Small Farm Quarterly. But we have wanted to collect them together in a way that these articles then represent different aspects of getting started in farming. And again, another way for people who are interested in just hearing stories and learn best by stories. And so these are written by a diversity of individuals, some educators, some farmers, who, and then we have a lot of profiles of new farmers here at the bottom as well. So I would, again, consider this another resource to help people think through whether or not getting into farming is something for them. And one other piece, I haven't really alluded to it too much, but there's a whole bunch of information that is buried in these sites that we consider like the farmer's bookshelf, and these are links sometimes to online resources or how to find them. But in both the Beginning Farmer site as well as the Cornell Small Farm Program site, you will find resources, tremendous numbers of resources that are available. In the case of the Small Farm site, this is where we really try to focus in on resources for established farmers. For example, in production, you can see that we have this wide array of materials that have been collected together. And so these aren't the only materials out there, but there's a few that we felt were really good or well done or easily accessible online. Again, something that you might be able to use in your own work to share information with individuals who come to you directly, or even to be able to forward them to some of these resources so they can explore on their own. So it's both the learning information, but then kind of the diagnosis and the support for decision making. And I think that's the piece that's critical for us, is how do you support good decision making on farms? And so some of our online courses are related directly to decision making. For example, we have a course on holistic management, which is the entire framework for decision making, in which you really consider environment, economics, and social goals that you might have as an individual or a farmer. You can apply the decision-making framework to your life in general. It doesn't have to be for agriculture. But that's an example of something that we feel is really important. It's not just technical information. It's really how do you put it all together? And how do you put it together in a way that feeds your soul, feeds your energy, and really plays to your skills? And so we try to think about all of that, the soft skills development as well as the technical skills development. But this whole piece of scale up. So, and I think this may be relevant to some of you, is, we recognize that it's a real trick to go from, growing at a very small scale and then wanting to really actually change your practices and move into something at a larger scale and a more commercial scale. So we do have some advanced enterprise online courses that are designed for supporting farm diversification. Well, the mushroom one is one, for example, but we have a high tunnel class that's starting shortly. We have both vegetable and berry production classes that are online to give people the start or deepen their skill sets around those two production systems. We have a grazing course. All of these are meant to sort of help with the scale up. And we're going to be adding food safety and even adapting to climate change. So these are some of the courses that we're adding that are really meant to help deal with scale up. And but our current funding supports also, we have funding from the USDA to help those individuals who are maybe 3 to 5 years in and want to re-strategize. And what we're actually doing is helping farms create what we call profit teams. And these are teams of consultants, often extension educators, who they hire to help them improve their own entrepreneurship, business training, and planning, and help them make decisions, really important decisions to grow the business. And so we have funding. Each of the farms who participate get $2,000 as a grant, and then they have to commit $500 of their own funds. So they have $2,500 to work with over 18 months to pay people to consult with, whether that's a person to help them with their nutrition plan, if it's someone to help them with their disease management plan, if it's about how do I improve the quality for a wholesale market. It's up to the farmer. What we want to know is that how they really feel, and all we care is that they find the right people to help them take the business to the next level. So this is very much one-on-one consulting. And then the other thing we're doing is developing these sort of intensive training programs that will be on scaling equipment. This is something that's really tricky to go from a very small scale, even to move from sort of less than a half an acre to 1 acre to 5 acres and then to 10. Like there's tend to be breaks there, like actually at over 5 acres and then over 25 acres. I think there's like some natural breaks in scale that suggest a scaling up of equipment, and what do you pick and how do you pick it and what's going to be most adaptable going forward. So our training programs will focus on scaling up equipment and then the wholesale market readiness, which we think diversifying markets is really important as we move into this, as we see this growth in local foods. The last thing I just want to talk about and share with you is this whole area of work that we're doing right now focused on military veterans. And it's really trying to create pathways for veterans to find employment on farms or to actually start farms. So I wanted to draw your attention to it because I think that all of you are really out there and interfacing with a lot of folks. And we are getting more veterans returning from service that we are trying to help them integrate back into community. And whether it's agriculture or gardening or farming, we know there's really meaningful benefits to them to be involved with this kind of physical work. So I am going to just I can share more with you, but I think I want to have enough time for conversation. But we have a whole new area of work that's developing around supporting veterans. And in this August, we're going to host a 1-week intensive that's called Armed to Farm for military veterans. And it will take place in Central New York this year. It was Western New York last year. It's Central New York this year. And then next year it'll be in Eastern New York. So if you feel people, you know people who might be interested, please let us know and pay attention to our announcements when they come out. So as I start to close, I want to make sure you know the folks that can help you in the program. We have a really awesome staff at the Small Farm Program. Violet Stone, who leads our wholesale market stuff and general inquiries. Erica, who's provided leadership to the Beginning Farmer Project and online courses. Ryan Marr, he has facilitated the Educator Network and also is really focusing on soil health management and creating appropriate technologies for small farms. Matt Weiss, he's new to the program and he's leading our current Beginning Farmer grant, but also shepherding the veterans work. Steve Gabriel, who many of you might know, is his background in agroforestry. He wrote the book Forest Farming with Ken Mudge, and he's now joined our program, and he's being the managing editor of the Small Farm Quarterly. And Kathy Peck, who is brand new to the program, but is helping us dig more aggressively into how do we help cultivate local food systems and networks for farmers to really grow their businesses in this area. So I think that's really all I wanted to share with you, which is sort of the program, what we're up to, and well, you can always reach out to me or to any of the staff at the program and just send us an email if you're looking for something and you can't find it.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.